Before you change one of these, you should be aware of the consequences in the code. The proformas have these limitations to prevent us from entering values that don't make sense. So for instance, you probably find that you can't enter a value of specific heat in a particular proforma. That's a good thing. Sometimes these limitations are also there because of something in the code that is behind the proforma. There's some limitation in the code that prevents us from simply entering any value that we want to. Other times, these limitations are arbitrary and were just set up that way when the proforma was made. And we're going to look at how to change them. So the first example I'm going to give is type 14, a forcing function. And you may have noted in using this component that you answer a question down here saying how many points make up your forcing function. And if you enter a value of 60 and press enter, it will give you the ability to enter all 60 points. Now, however, if you were to enter a value of, say, 120 here and press enter, it reverts back to 60. You can't define a 120 point forcing function. There's a limitation in the proforma. Now, in this particular case, this is a totally arbitrary limitation in the proforma. There's nothing in the code preventing us from having a forcing function that has as many points as we want. So what we're going to do is I'm going to double click on the proforma over in the direct access tool, not the proforma that is already in our project, not the instance of the proforma, but the default template proforma. I'm going to open it up, switch to the variables tab, select parameters. This is the notation for a cycle, in case you haven't seen that before. And I'm going to click on change, having selected the entire cycle. You can see here is where the minimum and maximum value has been, in this case, arbitrarily set. I'm going to change this value to 300. Click OK. I'm going to save the proforma and close it. Now, in my project instance of this proforma has not inherited the change that I just made to the default proforma. I'm still limited here. If I put in my 120, I'm still limited. It won't let me do that until I replace this instance of the proforma in my project. There's two ways of doing that. One, of course, is to simply delete the proforma out of the project and add it again. But that's a pain in the neck if you've got a lot of links to and from the component. So I'm going to right click on it. I'm going to select replace from the context menu. I'm going to browse around until I find that proforma. Forcing functions, general type 14H. It warns me that it can't undo it once I've done this. I say yes. I double click on this, and now if I want to add that value, enter that value of 120, it will allow me to do so. Now, this is specific to a given proforma. Type 14A, for instance, is not changed. I would have to change type 14A in the same way that I changed type 14H in order to be able to specify more than 100 points when I'm using a type 14A. Okay. The second thing I want to show you is how to change the limits on an actual parameter value as opposed to the limits on a cycle. For that, I'm going to use type 75. And I'll show you that, so this parameter here, let's say I wanted to have a building that is 5 stories tall. It doesn't let me enter 5. If I click on the More button, I'll see that it's limited between 1 and 3 stories. Now, there may be a very good algorithmic reason why there is that limitation. This algorithm that calculates infiltration may be invalid for larger buildings. But just as a point of showing you how to do this, I'm going to proceed with this change. So again, I double click on the proforma in the direct access tool, switch to variables, switch to parameters, select the parameter that I want to change, click modify. I'll arbitrarily change this to a value of 10. Okay, okay, save my change, close, and again, I'm going to need to select Edit, Replace. I'm going to find that in Loads and Structures, Infiltration, Sherman-Grimsrud, RH Inputs, Type 75B. I select that, get the same warning. And now if I want to change this to a value of 6, it'll let me do it. One that is a no-no to change would be type 65D. I think a lot of people would like it to be possible to change this number of left axis variables to something larger than 10. You can't do that. And while I could go in and use this same technique that I've just shown you to change that limitation, we'd get all sorts of errors when we tried to do it, when we tried to run the simulation with that change made. Because there are limitations in the code for type 65 that prevent you from having more than 10 variables plotted on each of the left and right axes. Thanks for watching, and I hope this was helpful.